You have been missing 3 neighbors in 6 months. The first one disappeared on the road to the market. The second was found in the river. The third was never found at all. And everyone in your village knows who did it. The problem is that the person everyone suspects is the blacksmith's cousin, and the blacksmith is the most powerful man in town. There is no police force. There is no detective. There is no forensic evidence. There is no courtroom procedure that anyone is required to follow. What happens next depends entirely on where and when you are living, and the answers are stranger, more brutal, and more sophisticated than you probably expect. Ancient Rome had a surprisingly developed legal system for its time. It had courts, judges, lawyers, and elaborate rules of procedure. What it did not have was anything resembling a modern investigation. Roman law operated on the principle of accusation. If you believed someone had committed a crime, you accused them publicly and presented your case before a magistrate. The accused could present their own defense. Witnesses were called. Arguments were made. The problem with serial killers is that this system was designed for disputes between known parties. It was not designed for a situation where the killer was unknown, the victims were strangers, and the evidence was the absence of bodies. When Rome did identify a serial killer, the response was swift and disproportionate. The penalty for murder was death, usually by beheading for citizens or crucifixion for slaves and foreigners. But conviction required witnesses, and witnesses to a murder were, by definition, usually dead. The result was that Roman serial killers who were careful enough to leave no witnesses could operate for a remarkably long time. The law was sophisticated. The investigation was almost non-existent. One documented Roman case involves a woman named Locusta, who poisoned at least 2 people on behalf of Emperor Nero before being caught. She was not caught through investigation. She was caught because Nero stopped needing her. The moment she was no longer useful, she became a liability. She was executed under Galba after Nero's death. The lesson Rome taught was not about catching killers. It was about who had powerful friends. Imperial China had a solution to the investigation problem that Rome never developed. The magistrate who investigated, prosecuted, and judged the same case. The Chinese magistrate was responsible for everything. He investigated the crime scene, interviewed witnesses, examined the body, tortured suspects to obtain confessions, and then rendered a verdict. All of this was done by the same person. The Song Si, a 13th century forensic manual called The Washing Away of Wrongs, is one of the earliest systematic guides to crime scene investigation in history. It describes how to distinguish drowning from strangulation, how to examine wounds to determine the weapon used, how to tell whether a fire started before or after a body was placed in it. This was real forensic science, 6 centuries before Europe developed anything comparable. Chinese magistrates used these techniques to identify killers who had tried to disguise their crimes. The manual describes cases of suspected suicides that examination revealed to be murders. For serial killers, the Chinese system had a clear response: confession followed by public execution. The method of execution was calibrated to the severity of the crime. The Chinese system was more sophisticated than Rome's in one crucial way. It took investigation seriously, but it had its own fatal flaw. It relied on confession. And confessions obtained by torture are not reliable. Innocent people confessed. Guilty people with enough money to bribe the magistrate went free. In ancient Mesopotamia, the Code of Hammurabi established one of the first written legal systems in history. Its approach to crime was built on a principle that is completely alien to modern legal thinking: collective responsibility. If a man was robbed and the robber was not caught, the city and the governor in whose territory the robbery occurred were responsible for compensating the victim. The community was liable for crime that happened within it. This created a powerful incentive for communities to police themselves. If a serial killer operated in your area and was never caught, your community paid the price. This meant that communities had strong reasons to identify, report, and eliminate anyone who threatened public safety. The person who disappeared and reappeared with unexplained wealth attracted attention not because anyone suspected murder, but because unexplained wealth was everyone's business in a system of collective liability. Across every ancient civilization, the same pattern appears. The legal system, however sophisticated, broke down when the suspected killer had power, money, or social status. In Rome, Locusta operated for years because she had imperial protection. In China, wealthy defendants could bribe their way through a system that was supposed to be impartial. In Mesopotamia, powerful families could suppress accusations against their members by paying off victims' families. The ancient world had no solution to the problem of the powerful killer. The law applied to the powerless with full force. It applied to the powerful selectively, at best. The killers who were caught and punished were almost always people without social connections, without money, and without protection. The killers who operated longest were almost always people with exactly those things. The ancient world understood several things about crime that modern systems often forget. They understood that public punishment served a social function beyond justice. The community needed to see that the threat had been eliminated. They understood that investigation required specialized knowledge. The Song's systematic approach to forensic evidence shows that ancient investigators knew that evidence could be read from bodies and crime scenes, not just from witnesses and confessions. What they did not understand was that a justice system that applies differently to the powerful and the powerless is not really a justice system. It is a system for managing the powerless while protecting the powerful. The legal system was sophisticated. The politics were not. Some things have not changed as much as we would like to think. The blacksmith's cousin who killed your 3 neighbors had the right connections. In ancient Rome, in Imperial China, in Mesopotamia, that often meant one thing. He probably got away with it. The blacksmith is still the most powerful man in town.